next speaker is going to talk to us about being the leader you envision. And she is qualified to do that because she has become a leader. Tracy Tulle is the Senior Vice President of Flight Crew Operations at Allegiant. She is an industry veteran with more than 25 years of progressive experience. She currently serves, I already said that, as Allegiant Senior Vice President. I'll just say it again because it's very important. She is the first at Allegiant to serve in this role, which united airlines, flight operations, and in-flight services departments under one umbrella. I just have to stop. Did you hear that? They created a position just for her. Okay, that is awesome. Okay, this is where I start to get nervous. My hands are starting to shake and sweat. Tracy Tulle is responsible for a team of more than 2,800 Allegiant employees, including more than 1,100 pilots and 1,700 flight attendants across the company's network. I would have to be hospitalized. She began her career with Milwaukee, Wisconsin-based Midwest Airlines as a flight attendant, and after advancing through several management roles, joined Delta Airlines subsidiary Comair as vice president of in-flight. Tulle previously served on the board of directors of the Alzheimer's Association Greater Cincinnati chapter and is currently a member of the Women's Executive Circle in Las Vegas and Women in Aviation International. Wow, Tracy, come and give it to us.
Good morning, everyone. I think I need the clicker. I'm going to do what Rhonda did, if that's okay, and I'm going to walk in front. Does that work for everybody? Maybe not the photographer, but good morning, everyone. Wow, Rhonda, thank you. Can we give her a round of applause? That was amazing. That was a wonderful way to start our day. So thank you for the motivation. Appreciate it very much. So I have the privilege of chatting with you all today about becoming the leader you envision. And so what I thought the best way to do this is to kind of take you through my journey and share with you the insights that I've learned, because I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. Am I going backwards? Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought we were going to the right. We're going to the left. Who would have thought? Okay. So when you think of a leader, what do you envision? And I'm thinking of some of the things Rhonda just said. So what environment do you envision? Do you want to be in an office? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to work from home? Do you want to work in a factory? There's lots of options for women these days, right? What appearance do you envision? We just talked about our authentic self, right? But do you want to wear the 3-piece suit? Some of us do. Do you want to wear the jogger set working from home? Some of us want that too, right? How about a little bit in the middle? Business casual. Some of us are doing that today as well. And then when you think about the leader that you envision, you think about who, because there's a lot of them out there, right? So you think of people like Condoleezza Rice, who's in politics. Look at Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube. And then there's Bethany Frankel. Everybody know Bethany? Skinny girl, right? She went out on her own venture. And then, of course, there's this, that glass ceiling that we have to think about, right? No matter what role we're in, we probably have to deal with a little bit of this, right? Look at some of these women who have gone there before us. Pam Smith, chief of the United States Park Police. You've got Amy Strunk, owner of the Tennessee Titans. And then you've got Mary, CEO of General Motors. Those aren't positions that you would normally think of for women leaders, right? But they did it. They found a way to become the leader that they envisioned. So what do you envision for yourself? Lots to think about, right? So you think about the environment. Where do you want to work? Your area of interest. There's lots of opportunities. There's healthcare. The airline business I'm going to talk a little bit about today. Maybe it is technology. What about your personality? Rhonda just said, be who you are, right? Find something that fits your personality. Do you like to work with people? Do you not like to work with people? Do you want to be independent? That's okay too. Appearance. How do you want to look every day? Maybe you don't want to put on the makeup and the high heels. I don't want to put on the high heels for sure. And then, of course, there's those glass ceilings. Got to think about that too, right? So I'm going to start by walking you through my journey. I've only got 20 minutes to do this, so I'm going to keep it moving, okay? But I do think it's important to share with each other lessons learned because we can all learn from each other's experiences. So I'm going to start with my educational background. I earned a BA in communications from Wisconsin Lutheran College. It was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And when I graduated, I was doing a job that I wasn't so proud of. Now, don't let your minds wander. It wasn't anything like that. I was actually one of those cold call people where I called someone and said, guess what? You won a big prize. And in order to claim that prize, you've got to drive about 3 hours, go visit a resort, take a tour of a condo, and then you get your prize. Remember those jobs? Yeah, my parents were not too proud of me for that. So they told me I better start looking for a new job. So I thought, what do? I'm just out of college. I haven't really done this before. Remember, this is many years ago. Social media really didn't exist. So I remembered when I was a senior in college, I was invited to join a luncheon. And the luncheon was put on by women leaders in Milwaukee. It was called Tempo. And so I sat at a table, just like you're all sitting at today. And the lady sitting next to me was the marketing director for Midwest Airlines. It's an airline that was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So she gave me her business card. And so here I am looking for a job. And I pulled out that business card and I made a phone call. And I said, I'm looking for a job. Do you remember me? She said, I remember you. We have jobs. The only job we have available right now is that of a flight attendant. Would you be interested? And I thought, well, I kind of wanted to get into the marketing department, but okay, if this is my way in the door, sure, I'll go for it. I'll be a flight attendant, right? So when I showed up at the open house, I don't know if any of you have participated in these, but it was an open house where there's 100 of competitors for the job of flight attendant. And when I left that open house, I called my parents and I said, don't get excited. I'm not going to get an offer. The people that showed up at this job looked like they were amazing. The hair was done, the suits were on, the nylons, the heels, the nails, the makeup, everything was perfect. And I thought, I'm just not going to fit in. That's not me. So I set my parents up for what I thought was going to be a denied offer, right? Well, they did offer me the job. And so I started my career in the airline industry as a flight attendant. So some things I want to share, sharing insights with all of you and what I learned through that part of my journey. Seek opportunities. When invited, go. Don't be afraid to ask and network. So seek opportunities. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I needed to find something else. I didn't want to stay where I was. So I made the conscious decision to go seek something else. When invited, go. You were all invited to be here today. Look at the fabulous women that you're sitting next to. When you have those opportunities and people invite you, take advantage of it. Go meet people. Don't be afraid to ask. I pulled out the business card. I called. Do you have a job? Don't be afraid to ask. We as women oftentimes think, don't want to ask anything, right? The guys, they've got more confidence. They'll ask the questions. No. Things are different. You make sure you ask. And then lastly, network. Don't forget the business card. Don't forget the contacts of people that you know. Keep those phone numbers. Stay in touch with people. Stay on LinkedIn, right? Update your profile. So I had an amazing 15 years career with Midwest Airlines. Started out as a flight attendant, eventually moved my way into being an instructor, found my way over on the operations side, being a supervisor, manager, and then eventually director of in-flight services. Some things I learned in my 15-year career with Midwest: seek mentorship to become better, consider that next step, and don't let failure stop you. So the first one's really important. I found 2 women that worked at Midwest Airlines that were in high-level positions, and I became their friends. I wanted to learn from them. They had much more experience than I did. They had a lot of opportunities to deal with different situations that I hadn't had yet. So I asked them to mentor me, and I learned so much from them. I asked to sit in their staff meetings so I could see how they facilitated their staff meetings. I asked to be a part of when they gave a presentation. I wanted to see how they handled themselves. And I learned so much from those two women. Considering your next step. When I was a flight attendant, 2 years later, I wanted that next job, the instructor. 2 years later, I wanted to be a supervisor. 2 years later, I'm going for the manager job. So you got to see what the line in sight is for what opportunities you want to be when you envision that leader. And don't let failure stop you. I had a lot of these. I tried 3 times to become an instructor. They told me no the first 2 times and said, you just don't have the experience. You've got everything else. You just don't have the experience. So I got the experience. I kept trying to get better. And then the 3rd time I was offered that position. So now we're at this point, professional journey. Now what's in it for me? I kind of got to the peak where I could at Midwest Airlines. And there was another opportunity. So here's what happened. A headhunter called me and said, hey, Tracy, not sure if you're interested, but we've got a VP level position opening up. It's at Comair, which is the Delta Airlines subsidiary based in Cincinnati, Ohio. What do you think? And of course I was like, well, yeah, VP level. Wow, of course. Yeah, I'm interested. As soon as I hung up the phone, what do we as women do? We start self-doubting, right? And I remember going back and looking at the notes on my paper after I hung up the phone with the headhunter. And I kept thinking, did he really say VP? Really? That level? Really? They're thinking about me? Why would they think about me? We as women self-doubt, right? And it's important because we're kind of going back to one of those other insights I shared earlier. Remember those people and those contacts that you make? Well, the headhunter got my name through a labor attorney that I had worked with at Midwest for several years. And they referred me to the headhunter. So remember, stay in contact with those people. So some of the insights to learn from that story, consider your next step. I knew that if I stayed at Midwest, where things were very comfortable for me, 15 years, I had friends, my family, everybody was in that area of Wisconsin. If I was going to have to pursue career growth, I might have to take some risk. I might have to go somewhere. Know your value. Don't second guess what you bring to the table. You're where you are because you deserve to be there. Oftentimes we start thinking, well, I'm looking around the room and I see all this talent. Look what Rhonda just achieved, right? I can't be at that level. Know your value. Each and every one of you has a value that you bring to the table. So 3 years later, here I am, VP, right? I got there, made it. And then the industry just started to tank. Does anybody remember the 2008 financial crisis? Yep. Labor environment was pretty tough. Unions, they were all trying to strike. And guess what? My job was eliminated. We went from about 1,500 flight attendants at Comair to 400 in a matter of 3 years. So Delta said, if you can't get your cost structure down, we're going to start giving flying to the other airlines, the other regionals. And that's exactly what they did. And my whole job for 3 years was concessionary bargaining with the Teamsters Union. Woohoo, doesn't that sound like fun? Imagine asking for pay reduction, changes in work rules, getting more productivity. Basically, you need to work harder for less money. 3 years. So job was eliminated. So I'm back to this point, right? What's next? My job went away. So I go back to college. Remember people that we know, contacts that we have? So I remembered a friend of mine from high school. Her name was Michelle, and she was a professor at my alma mater, Wisconsin Lutheran College. So I called her up and I said, I don't even know if I can do this, but could I teach business courses? I've got almost 20 years in the airline business. I have a lot to share. So she introduced me to the dean of students. Eventually, they asked me to become an adjunct professor. So I started teaching principles of management, organizational behavior, and business communications as part of the accelerated degree program for adults. And what an amazing opportunity that was. But some of the insights learned along the way: accept change and adversity gracefully. It's not easy to be told your job just went away. You're no longer needed, but thanks, right? So you pick yourself up by the bootstraps and you seek out those opportunities and you find the next greatest thing. Because when doors open or when doors close, others open, right? Remember that whole thing? When you're told no, you go find the yes. Take advantage of relationships. Went and found my friend from high school, Michelle. She helped me out. And then no matter what you're doing, just know that when you share your experiences, it can be so rewarding. Being an adjunct professor for me was one of the best things I ever did. So here we are again, right? What's next? Here we go. Got another phone call, another headhunter from the same labor law office, from the people that I worked with prior. And they said, do you want to get back in the business? So what do you all think? After a few years of concessionary bargaining with unions, tough time in the airline industry, right? I was like, I'm not so sure. But my husband was a pilot and he was going to start flying for Hawaiian Airlines based out of Honolulu. Now, some of you may disagree, but I didn't want to move that far away. So, okay, maybe this is the next step in our story, right? Because there's a purpose, as Rhonda said, for everything, right? So we thought, well, maybe this is it. So I decided to start my next part of my professional journey with Allegiant here in Las Vegas. And we decided to make Las Vegas our home base. And that was 10 years ago. So here's what's happened since I've been here at Allegiant. They asked me to come in and take over the in-flight team. So in-flight means the flight attendant group. So I had the in-flight team, I had onboard sales program. And then they said, you know what? We really like what we're doing. So we'd like you to take on a little more responsibility. So why don't you take on customer experience? It's been a long time since we've focused on the customer. We need someone to kind of take lead on that. So I started the customer experience leadership team. And we started that in 2017. And we've made a lot of progress there too. So I thought I was living life, just keeping it moving, right? Very comfortable. And then the CEO called and said, hey, do you think that you have to be a pilot to lead the pilot group? And I said, you know, I think that it helps, but I do think if you're a good leader, good leadership skills can expand any aspect of the business. And he said, okay, well, what do you think? And I said, are you talking about me? Again, self-doubt, right? I'm like, no, you can't really be serious. And he said, yeah, no, I want you to lead the pilot group as well. And I said, well, look, there's going to be some risk because I'm 0 for 2. Number one, I'm not a pilot. And number two, I'm a female in a very male-dominated work group, right? And I said, so if you're willing to take the risk, you think this is what's best for the organization, then I say, let's do it. And he said, let's do it. So for the last 3 years, I've been leading the pilot group, the flight attendant group, and the customer experience leadership team. So the insights that I want to share from this part of my journey, first of all, never say never, right? Because I thought airline industry, I'm done, close that door. But we all know that other doors open. Humility is an advantage. So what I mean by that is when I had to take over the pilot group, imagine 1,100, 1,200 pilots spread out throughout the country in 20 different crew bases. What were they going to think about me right away? It certainly wasn't going to be, oh, we see why she's the right person for the job. I certainly didn't have the technical skills, but that's not what I was hired for. I was hired to lead. I was hired to remove obstacles so the pilots can do their jobs. And that's what I did. I went out and I knew they had to meet me. They had to see who I was and what I was bringing to the table. so I can remove all of their self-doubt or their doubt about me, right? So that's what I did. And so I went out there and I came with an approach of humility. I don't know your work, but I want to learn. Because if I learn and I observe, I can better help you, right? So that's what I did. 3 years later, I feel I've got an amazing relationship with some wonderful pilots that work for us, and it has been successful. Do not change who you are to fit in. Rhonda touched on this a little bit, but I had a female colleague tell me, hey, you got to join the big boys club now. So you got to change who you are. You got to like the things they like. You got to hang out with them and do what they do. And I remember looking at her saying, I don't have to change anything. I got here because of what I bring to the table, and I'm not going to change who I am to fit in. If anything, maybe they should learn from me a little bit, right? So never change who you are to fit in. And lastly, stay in the zone. And I think about this a lot because I'm in a lot of meetings. So imagine you're in a room with 50 people and 49 of them are men, and you're the only woman. Stay in the zone. Don't get distracted that you're the only woman in the room. I've done that before, and I've caught myself. Don't worry about what they're talking about. Don't worry about what they're doing. Remember why you're there. You're there for a purpose. You're there for a reason, and you have the talent to be in that room just like they do. So the last thing I just wanted to suggest, and this is just a little motivational, a little inspiring, but this book that talks about Alice Paul's fight for women and the right to vote, many times I have felt down and I have felt that glass ceiling. I'm so sick of it. I keep chipping away, but I can't crack the whole thing. Any of you felt that way a little bit sometimes? So when I have felt that way, I've had female colleagues come to me and say, don't give up, because you are making a difference. Just you being in this role, you're chipping away, and we need you to keep chipping away. So that helps boost me up, right? But this read is motivational if you ever find yourself in that place where you want to give up. So just a little hint of advice to read a good book. And there's several of them here too. Thank you, everybody. That was my presentation for this morning. Rhonda, do we have time for Q&A or did I go too long? Okay. Any questions from anybody that I can answer? Someone's got to be the first one, right? Somebody's got to say something. I'm sorry. Do I have a job? Oh, I love that. As a matter of fact, we have lots of jobs right now. We have over 5,000 positions across the system. And yes, we're hiring in a lot of different positions. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to reiterate a couple of times here when I've been in this job the last 3 years leading the pilot group. And I remember a specific time where we had the FAA come in, and the FAA is predominantly male, right? And I was ignored in the conference room. The conversations were going on amongst all the men, and they were talking about my area that I was responsible for. And I remember they took a break, and I felt like, okay, how do I insert myself without being, oh, here she comes, right? I'm not the I am woman, hear me roar. I want my value to speak for itself. So on that break, I went to that female colleague that I had, and I said, here's the situation, and I got to go back in there. And she said, don't forget why you're here. You have just as much knowledge and expertise as they do, and you're in charge. And it was kind of like, oh, yeah, that's right. I am. Okay. Tighten up the shirt, right? You walk back into the room. And I remember I opened up the conversation and I said, you know, gentlemen, you had some pretty interesting conversations earlier this morning. You know, there's a couple of things that I'd like to follow up on. And I had 3 different things listed out where they were like, oh, she knows that. Oh, she came back with that. And I felt proud of myself that I inserted and I got back in that conversation. And now they noticed me. And so now they started talking with me. I got myself back in that conversation. Never underestimate the power that a fellow female colleague can have for you. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Boy, that's a really good question. I call my mom on my way into work, and I call my mom on my way back from work. A lot of you are nodding, right? My mom was extremely influential in my life. We grew up on a farm in the middle of Wisconsin, and she was the brains behind the business. So I'll call her and say, oh, I got this, I got this, I got this, these guys, this, right? Get it all out, get it all out. And she'll tell me, oh, those guys. But just remember, they don't matter. That's not what's important in life. She brings me back to the center, right? So I get a little pep talk from her in the morning. And then on my way home, it's kind of a debrief, right? And then, of course, when you get home, you have your glass of wine and you chill out with your dogs. So, yes, ma'am. Yeah, good question. So the company actually has a mentorship program. And so they reached out to me and asked me to actually personally mentor another female leader in the company. She's at the director level, but what we do is we meet once every 2 weeks. We check in with each other. I say, how are things going? She shares some of the conflicts she's having, and I give her some ideas and ways to try to facilitate through all of that. So that's a great point, though. Any organization having an internal mentorship program is huge. And one thing that maybe a lot of you are realizing with the change in generations, it's one thing that the younger generation is looking for. They want to be included, which means mentorship can fill that gap for them. So that's huge for companies today. Great questions, ladies. Anything else? Ma'am. I feel my purpose. That's a deep question. I always wondered, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And I feel like the more I've matured, I have a strong faith. I feel that that's part of my purpose. When people feel down, I share my faith in a lot of ways. I feel like my purpose is just to do the best I can. I always want people to learn from me. So I feel like my experiences, what I'm sharing with you today, that you can learn from something and take advantage of it and be better yourself. So, kind of goes back to that. I made a lot of mistakes in my career, over 30 years of being in this industry. And when I think back to those mistakes, some of them are so embarrassing, but I hope that by sharing them out loud and sharing them with all of you, that we can all learn from that, right? I'm sure we all think about those little embarrassing things we've done, right? Something we've said, something we did. Oh no, was that the wrong thing that I said in that meeting, right? So I think it's more just maybe sharing and learning and knowing that that's my purpose. Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it very much.